Everybody, the Mcoc AlBundyRules. What I got for you is something that I get asked constantly. People ask all the time. Masteries are always an item or a thing that just has discussion, and there's one specific setup that people ask about probably the most frequently out of all the other masteries, and that is what is referred to as the suicide mastery setup. So this specific setup, it got that nickname suicides because you get extra attack, you get extra boost, actually up to a 60% attack rating increase. However, you can lose health along the way, hence the nickname. It's got suicides. So what I'm going to do for you in this video is I'm going to break it down great for you. I'm going to start off here with this little intro, and then it's going to be broken down into these 5 different pieces. So we have our intro letting you know what we're doing and why we're doing it. I did a similar video in the past that I'm redoing to give you some higher quality, upgraded and updated changes, really to help out this long and highly asked question. After the intro, I'm going to get into it. I'm going to show you a side-by-side demonstration. I'm going to show you a same champ, same R5 5-star, how quick it goes through fights with suicides as opposed to non-suicides, so you can see visually for yourself on the difference. I am then going to show the entire overlay outline of the suicide masteries, at least the basic. I'm also going to cover the unit cost. How much does it take? I'm going to show you an intro level of it as you can build upon from there, including the unit costs and the breakdown. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons. That 60% attack doesn't just come out of nowhere. There are some negatives associated with it, which is why this is not a no-brainer decision. It's going to be variant. I'm going to talk about pros and cons. Followed by that, I'll be wrapping up helping you figure out if suicides are good for you. People ask me all the time, suicide masteries, should I use them? Would they be good for me? The answer is yes for some. The answer is no for some. I'm going to give you the information you need to make the choice before you invest in this mastery setup. And with that being said, I'm now going to get into a little side-by-side display going on. So now for part 2 of this video, I'm going to show you a side-by-side. Let you see for yourself. Like, I can talk about things all day long and tell you what's good, what's bad, 60%, but nothing beats visual. So I got 2 Corvuses going on. I'm using my main and my mini for the sake of making this easier. I got side-by-side videos going on. So on the left, I have a Corvus, R5 5-star Corvus with suicide masteries on, full suicides masteries. On the right, I have an R5 5-star Corvus as well, one of my mini, that is no suicides on there. You will first notice a massive PI power index rating difference of about over 5,000 between the two. Sometimes people ask, why is your PI higher? Why is your rating higher? Blah, blah, blah. Masteries play a role. The highest are going to go up with these right here with the suicide masteries. Do not confuse PI with prestige. Prestige is not going to change with mastery. So if you're trying to bump up your prestige, don't think suicides is going to help you with that. It will not. PI really has no real meaning, honestly. So we will see I'm already done with the first fight on the R5 5-star Corvus with the suicide masteries on that 60% attack rating, while on the right I'm still on fight number 1. So and that was on the first fight where there are 0 charges. I was purposely getting 1 charge out of that fight. With the second fight, I'm going to get 2 more charges. On the left, I took a little bit of beating. I made a little mistake over there, but that's fun. This doesn't have to be perfect gameplay. Just trying to show you the difference, looking at the numbers, looking at the time, because this is going to be a big reason why Suicide Masteries is very useful. Some people think it's for beating content. It's not. In fact, a lot of content's harder with suicides, honestly. Sometimes have to turn it off for some content. It's about quickness. It's about that extra 60%. We'll see on the left, I'm starting fight number 3 now, where I barely just started fight number 2. So I've only got a few fights going on, and we're seeing some massive differences. On the left with the Suicide Masteries fighting Electro, so that's going to get me down to the 1%, but that's fine as long as I got my clave charges with my Awoke Corvus, I'm fine. Meanwhile, I just finished fight number 3 with my R5 5-star Corvus with Suicide Masteries. Meanwhile, on the right with the no Suicide Masteries, my R5 5-star Corvus is just now finishing up fight number 2. Those of you who do arena, those of you who just don't want to put a lot of time, just want to get things done faster, get a little more bang for your buck, a little more pow chicka wow with it, yeah? Some of you, this can really show you why I enjoy Suicide Masteries. One of my unpopular opinion videos was about how I just can't stand playing this game without Suicide Masteries. Probably one of the reasons I pretty much stopped playing on my mini for the most part, because I use that for like unit gifting, not to build it up. I haven't used any units on that. And so it does make a difference in the overall play as far as the amount of fun. It's a lot slower, as we're seeing here. So this little visual aid I have provided can really show you, lets you know what is the best, how is this useful to you. And we're going to get into the next part now. Now looking at these masters, going to show you a little setup. The minimum setup, okay? Keep in mind, it's going to be the minimum, gets you started. You can add from there. I'm also going to be showing you the unit cost from the breakdown. So there's going to be some requisites before you can get, but I'm going to focus on the main after the basic build-up as we scroll on over. Keep in mind, these are some prerequisites. You can't just get to the good stuff. You can't just get to the 60% attack damage. You got to get some prerequisites. I'm going to be starting off on the main ones outside of normal build-up. And we'll see some of them I might have 1 point in, some of them I may have 3 points in. It's going to vary based on my desire. Glass cannon starting with, I keep 1 point in there. It's 405 points for a single, 405 units for 1 point. This gives the attack rating 2.4% of their base health, so it has some extra attack, but it also decreases your health. Not 1 point isn't too big of a deal either way. Keep in mind, this is not optional. If you want to run this master, you cannot unlock the other ones unless you have unlocked this. Me personally, I keep only 1 point in there. I have no intention of ever changing that at any point, at least not under current situations. So now we're going to look at the next prerequisite before we get to the goodies. That's recoil. This is the big deal breaker for most people. Your champions increase attack during special attack by 30%, but sacrifice 5% health for each activation of S1 and S2. If you primarily use champs that really rely on those S1 or S2, like a Void or something, for example, this is going to hurt you bad. You might not want this. This could be a deal breaker for some. Some champs, you can learn how to reuse them around recoil. Some, like Ghost, can actually phase around recoil with proper synergy, or sometimes like Mcoc actually takes decreased 50% less recoil. However, a lot of champs this is going to hurt. So if you're using recoil, unless you have a sustainable champ or someone who can find a way around it, which there isn't many out there like that, you have to really minimize or avoid using S1s or S2s. For some champs, that's cool, that's fine. Some champs, that could be a major deal breaker. So watch out for this recoil. Keep in mind, it's 505 points for just 1 point. I only keep 1 point in there. No intention of ever changing that, personally speaking, based on how I roll in this game. Now we got Liquid Courage. This is where you get the good stuff. This one is 30% attack damage for 3 points. I highly recommend keeping 3 points in here to get the full benefit out of it. Keep in mind, though, you do suffer a poison debuff, in this case 0.6% health per second. So if you're using champs non-poison immune, that's okay. I'm going to show you a way you can kind of balance that out with some continued mastery setup on here, so it's not a deal breaker. I rarely use poison immune champs while Suicides is up. It could be nice, it could minimize some damage, but there is some way around that. And doesn't have to be a requirement. That's 30%. I've spoken about a 60% attack increase, right? So let's look at the other 30%. That's on the double edge. This one is 2,220 units for 3 points, which is quite a bit more than the last one we saw. This is going to give you an extra 30%, but up to 20% health is lost by bleed debuff over 16 seconds, so up to 20%. Again, I'll show you ways to kind of balance that out. If you are not using bleed immune champs, I rarely use bleed immune champs with Suicide Masteries around it. However, it can be beneficial, but there are some things we can do to minimize that lost health along the way. So we do see some amount to get the good stuff. Again, 2220 there. The Liquid Courage for the other 30% was 1,650. So those two alone for all 3 points take quite a bit of units. And I'll give you the total cost for this minimum breakdown in just a little bit. But let's look at more parts on the defense. Some stuff you want to add to help keep you sustainable. Otherwise, your champs are going to die quick. 1,100 units for 1 point in willpower. I run 3, and I recommend start off with 1, but I recommend getting up to 3 eventually. This is for each new type of debuff your champions suffer. They regenerate passively from 0.5, 0.6, 0.7. So even 1 point is 0.5% health. So those debuffs, that helps give you back some of the health you get from losing from the bleed or poison immune. So even if you're not running bleed or poison immune champs, you will get some of that health back. You get other types of debuffs on, including non-damage, and you can really start healing some health right there. You also get that armor up. That extra armor bonus, 135 until that effect expires. This does not affect robots. However, robots don't really need it because they do not bleed or get poison damage. So it's going to be kind of a moot point, at least for the Suicide Mastery purposes. Another one you can run that I run at least 1 point on is Coagulate. We had noticed 20% you can lose at the beginning of the fight. This gives you 10% less damage from any bleed or bleed passive effects while they suffer. I have more points unlocked, but I found I rarely run more than 1 point, unless I just have extra ones to burn. That 10% does help a pretty good amount, and it's going to be 550 units for that 1 point. There's other ones you see locked up on mine that he could do to decrease bleed even more or even poison. I've never felt they were really needed if you wanted to invest in them and take points away from other things. I'd rather not, but if you wanted to, you could keep the sustainability there. And we will see some total setup on all this we're looking at is about 4,475 units. So from what I've spoke about, the minimum setup for these specific items and the amount of points I said, will run you 4,475 units to get the materials you need to unlock them. So it takes quite a bit. That's why you want to be sure that it's worth it for you. So make sure you keep watching the rest of this videos to break it down even a little bit more. Let me get into part 4 now of this, talking about the pros and cons, positives and negatives. Most things in life, there's some good and there's some bad. This mastery setup is not an exception. So let me start off talking about some of the good. The good is honestly pretty dang obvious, whole point of it, but let me re-emphasize it just for the purpose of it. And we see the 30% attack rating here. And we will see another 30% attack rating here for a total of 60% attack rating. That is the main reason people do this suicide setup mastery, no doubt about it. If you look at a little bit of extra attack, you can get 30% extra here on the specials. You can get a little tiny sliver extra here, the 2.4% as well, but that's just the extra tidbits on there. Another one you'll see too that could be part of the positives when you add the willpower is you're going to get some regeneration from the debuffs on your champions. So those are the positives. And it's really the main 60% attack. But on the negatives, there's a bit more negatives in here. Starting off with on the negatives, we will look at the reduced health you're going to have. We then will see our recoil, which is for most people a deal breaker and or the biggest negative to them. Ooh, bless me. Anyways, nothing like sneezing in the middle of talking about recoil. I must be allergic to recoil. But this is what keeps a lot of people scared, especially if you use mainly champs that focus a lot on specials. You have to change either the champs you use and or how you use certain champs with this recoil. You can't take a Professor X and just keep spamming special 1s and 2s, all right? You will not last very long. So this is probably the biggest negative most would say. Continued on the negatives, you will get this poison debuff. I mean, you're going to lose damage at the beginning of every single fight. Anytime you're not using a poison immune champ, you're going to lose some health. Same to be said over here with this bleed debuff. Every time you begin a fight without a bleed immune champ, you're going to lose some health. So those are going to be some pretty decent negatives this ways on. But now let's decide, let me give you the information you need to figure out if this is a good idea for you or not. So now part 5 of the video. Should you invest in Suicide Masteries? The answer is going to be different for most people. There's 2 main questions you look at. Do you mostly use champs that don't rely on S1 or S2 specials? Meaning, if you can't use S1 and S2s, will they still be good? Second question I look at is, do you use champs with bleed or poison immunity? That's not as much of a deal breaker as the first question, but it still plays a major impact, as immune champs and champs that do not rely on S1 or S2 are by far the best or most Suicide Mastery friendly. Here's a look at some of them. Corvus, Black Widow, Clairvoyant, Omega Red, Ghost, Aegon, and Diablo all thrive with Suicide Masteries, either based on immunity. Someone with Ghost with Hood could phase out of getting recoil damage. They don't make or break from not using S1s or S2s, and some even benefit heavily like Omega Red and Corvus. Those are some examples, not all inclusive. Then some not as good, meaning because they rely heavily on S1 or S2 and may not have might not have immunity. Void on that S1. Dr. Voodoo, his S1 and S2 relies on. Professor X, his S1 and S2s. Also, these don't have immunity. Night Thrasher really thrives on his S1 and S2 to build him up, and same with Spider-Man Stealth. Meaning, if you break away out of the rotations, they're not quite the same. There's some others we could throw up there as well, but just giving you a basic list of them to where they're not quite as good with suicides as without. So who do you mostly have is what you want to look at. In conclusion, what we discussed in this video in the multiple parts showed side-by-side comparison so you can actually see for your eyes the difference. Mastery setup broke down the mastery for a basic setup and the unit cost, how much it's going to cost you to get this setup, the pros and cons. There's good and bad and all kinds of things in life, isn't there? This is absolutely, once again, no exception. You get that 60% attack bonus is a major pro, but there's multiple cons along the way, from like the recoil is a major con, or those debuffs. And then discuss, is it worth investing in? And that's going to change based on your roster. Keep in mind, we spoke about over 4,000 units just for a basic setup, okay? So that is quite a lot, but don't think you have to do all at once. You can do little by little at a time is what I recommend. Get going from there. But is it worth investing? Look at what I showed you in the video as a whole, and that's going to decide. But your roster, what you like to play and what you're doing for is a big thing. Do you do a lot of arena? Do you try to play fast? Then possibly, yes, it is. Thanks so much for watching. I'm hoping you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful. If so, let me know. Let me know what you think. Also, don't forget to click that top left icon. Subscribe to Mcoc AlBundyRules. Be sure to turn those notifications on. I do a little something for everyone. You want to be the first to get a little bite of it, right? I do tips, tutorials, tricks, walkthroughs, all kinds of stuff. Thanks for watching.